Carbon River. The Bear Heart Cabin sits in a quiet, rarely visited corner of Mount Rainier National Park. A 10-minute walk from Carbon River Ranger Station. It is a small, deep brown cabin in the middle of a 100-foot forest clearing. A tiny island amidst the ocean of snow-caked spruce trees. The sudden snowstorms and resulting water damage to the visitor centers have left the park mostly uninhabited this winter. Apart from the rangers overseeing the repairs, the construction workers who come out to the park whenever they feel like working out in the cold, which is not often, and the 5 teenagers on holiday who decided to take advantage of the situation. Spending a weekend in the snowy mountains had been Shauna Whitecloud's idea. Her father was a park ranger, and she and Bly Bearheart were rangers in training who had spent many weekends helping their seniors at the station or enjoying the wilderness at the cabin with their families. Bly, being the oldest and most responsible of the group, had convinced Shauna's dad to let her coven use the cabin for the weekend while the park was under repair. Coley, Stella, and Gretchen were 3 virgins to the wilderness and initially tagged along out of tradition, if anything. The Hellraisers Club, as the 5 had liked to call themselves since junior high, historically did everything together, especially in the absence of responsible adults. Gretchen tunes out Stella's annoying, pointless tennis club anecdotes and instead listens to Shauna Whitecloud in the kitchen, deducing the other side of the phone call she's having with her father. "The roads are closed," growls Gretchen, pulling her wool-lined leather coat tighter around her shivering body. She sits at the dining table with Coley and Stella in the morning of their second day at Carbon River. Before she spoke, Coley had been hunching angrily over her smartphone and trying to comprehend its lack of service bars, while Stella had been warming up with another shot from a silver whiskey flask she'd stolen from her alcoholic father. Now Coley looks up in abject horror, her big doll eyes growing bigger. Stella merely blinks once and then takes another swig. "She said we were only gonna be here for the weekend," whines Coley. Gretchen's sigh is almost a hiss as she lays her head on the table. Phone call concluded. Shauna walks slowly out of the kitchen and toward the table, smiling that sweet, sheepish smile of hers. The one that usually meant she was either happy, confused, or about to deliver some news worthy of killing the messenger. Bly Bearheart burst through the front door just then, her blue coat and beanie caked with powdery snow. "Generators all fueled up for the day," she says cheerfully. "The half-breed's done it to us again, Tonto," says Gretchen, gesturing lazily to Shauna. "Got us into another fine mess." Shauna's optimistic smile begins to crack. She looks at Bly to avoid having the others look at her. The roads, they're closed. Papa just called. We're going to be stuck here for a while longer." "How much longer?" says Bly, zero concern in her voice. Shauna shrugs as she glances out the nearest window. The outside world had become a vague, distant outline of a forest, lost in a flurry of white and gray. "I dunno. The phone lines are taking a beating too, 'cause of the storm. He called 4 times before he got through, and he hasn't been able to reach the city at all. He or one of the other rangers will come check on us tomorrow, or the day after. They kind of have their hands full assessing the weather damage though, so unless things get serious, there's no telling when they'll come. We're basically on our own, probably for the rest of the week." Bly's energetic demeanor remains unchanged. "Okay," she says, and strides over to the kitchen, her braided hair wagging behind her. "I'll get breakfast started. Maybe we can go for a hike when the weather clears up." Gretchen snorts loud enough that Shauna flinches. "Joy," she says.
"I don't mind hanging out in the woods for another couple days,"
says Stella, smiling stupidly.
"At least till the liquor runs out,"
says Gretchen, smirking. Stella scowls at Gretchen and caps her flask before tucking it into her pocket. Mid-evening on day 3, the snow had started falling heavily again, and the sky began turning orange as the sun descended. During their fireside dinner, Bly, noting Coley's skittishness each time the wind howled, began telling her friends about all the mythical monsters she knew from the Chippewa legends and the legends from other tribes. She told the stories about the skinwalkers, terrible witches who can shapeshift into any animal they desire, so long as they carry that animal's pelt, and the Wendigos, snow-dwelling demons with glowing orange eyes and gravestone-sized teeth who terrorize their human victims before carrying them into the sky to be devoured. And Uhuknirpak, the colossal, unkillable Alaskan sea rat that drowns its victims before feasting on their bones. Through it all, Gretchen only pays mild attention to the details, while Coley hangs on every horrifying word. Bly's in the middle of teaching the others how to pronounce Uhuknirpak when the lights suddenly go out. Coley immediately reverts to 4 years old and rattles off in a string of terrified obscenities. Bly leaps from her seat and moves to the big metal furnace. It's dead and quickly growing cold. Shauna is already up and digging out the flashlight from her backpack.
"I thought you said the generator was full,"
says Coley.
"The cold might have froze it up,"
says Bly.
"Just a matter of thawing it out if that's the case. The furnace is dead. Get a fire going, G."
Groaning, Gretchen complies and starts piling wood into the fireplace. She, Coley, and Stella gather around the fire while Shauna and Bly put on their coats and head outside to the generator shed. They bring no power back with them. Only bad news. The fan belt was busted, and no replacement could be found. The generator was officially useless. This prompted Shauna to call her father at the ranger station. However, there was no answer. She called twice more, but still no result.
"Well, we have plenty of firewood,"
says Shauna, trying to keep hold of her waning cheer.
"Now we're basically camping in the woods with better shelter."
"Yeah," growls Gretchen. "And assloads of snow and no roads to drive on in an emergency and no goddamn phones."
"It ain't so bad, is it, G?"
says Stella.
"The air's clean up here at least. We got a warm fire to cook over. Remember when we got snowed in at your grandma's place and stayed up all night telling ghost stories?"
"Oh yeah, well remember that time I had my license suspended," says Gretchen. "And Bly was too drunk to drive us home from Tony's kegger. So I tried to drive us home and got pulled over. And while me and Bly fought over what we were going to tell the cops, Shauna and Kenny Galloway started fucking in the back seat with no clue what was going on."
Stella was already giggling uncontrollably at the memory. Shauna wasn't.
"We never get stranded in the woods when I am the event coordinator," said Gretchen. "When I'm in charge, worst case scenario, someone gets laid." Ugh.
She moans in agony and splays across the floorboards like a murder victim.
"Sarah Moore is having a party at her house tonight, and we're stuck freezing our asses off in a blizzard."
Shauna looks at her feet in silence for a minute with moist eyes. She says in a quiet voice, "I just wanted to do something special. Next semester we'll all be too busy with finals to hang out much. And when we graduate, it's basically goodbye Hellraisers Club, you know?" Gretchen sits up with a mock gasp.
"You mean no more camping trips?"
Shauna looks to Gretchen for a long time, then sulks through the kitchen to the back room and disappears. Gretchen sits with her legs crisscrossed, draws a cigarette and daintily lights it, then takes a long drag. The others try to find something to look at during the awkward silence.
Wish her little brother hadn't killed himself,
Gretchen mutters through a cloud of white smoke. She chuckles, reminiscing.
I wouldn't mind being snowed in with him for a week.
Hey, says Bly. Gretchen and the others glanced up at Bly as she leans against the hearth. The shadows paint the Chippewa girl's gentle face into a mask of menace, and the hunting knife hanging from her belt is clearly visible.
You watch your mouth,
she says when she has Gretchen's attention. Gretchen blows smoke in Bly's direction through her Cheshire cat grin.
Great minds think alike, huh, Tonto?
With a flick of the wrist, Bly's knife leaves its sheath and embeds itself on the floorboards, right between Gretchen's legs. Stella explodes with tipsy giggling.
She did.
Bly bends down to retrieve the knife, making sure to lean within kissing distance of Gretchen's shocked face.
No more Tonto shit either.
Morning, day 4. Bly Bearheart grabs the foot of the snoring Gretchen's sleeping bag and pulls upward, dumping her onto the cold wooden floor. She awakens with an angry shriek.
Breakfast is almost ready,
says Bly.
Get your snow clothes on and go collect Shauna. She's outside somewhere.
The shivering Gretchen glares at her defiantly, but the tall Chippewa is unmoved.
Why me?
says Gretchen.
'Cause you're the asshole,
says Bly.
'Cause you're the reason she's out there sulking. 'Cause I fucking said so. Take your pick of any other reasons, but do it anyhow.
Then she strides back into the kitchen. With a sigh, Gretchen gets dressed. The snow falls gently outside the morning sun, but the wind is still strong enough to howl occasionally and shake the snow out of the tree boughs. Yawning, Gretchen scans the brilliant white fields surrounding the cabin until she spots the fresh, boot-shaped tracks leading about 50 feet ahead, where the half-Indian in the dark green coat stands atop a hill edge on the woods. She faces away from the cabin, staring out into the swaying sea of trees. She doesn't turn around as Gretchen crunches through the ankle-deep snow to the top of the hill. She only looks when Gretchen stops behind her, watching her curiously. Shauna gives her a half-hearted smile, then continues gazing at the forest.
Tonto said come inside, says Gretchen. It's almost time to eat.
Shauna mumbles a reply, but she doesn't move. Gretchen clears her throat.
If I say I'm sorry, will you share whatever you're smoking?
Shauna's breath comes out in misty white clouds as she laughs.
I'm not high. I'm just listening.
Gretchen stares up at the boughs of the nearest tree, towering at least 60 feet overhead. She sighs.
Well, I am what I am. A nasty bitch, so there's no point in my apologizing, 'cause I'll just make you upset about something else later. And Stella and Coley will be idiots, and Bly will be pissed at me, and we'll repeat the cycle till doomsday.
Shauna says nothing and continues gazing across the woods, her brow furrowed. Her optimistic smile is on vacation. Listen, she finally says. Gretchen buries her gloved hand into her armpits and listens. Overhead, the boughs rustle and whisper, and the winds hum like a passing whale. Elsewhere, the wind hums again in reply to its own call. The woods seem to have hypnotized her for the moment, and she finds herself curiously staring at one particular spruce tree in the far distance, somewhere near the river, bearing large, abnormal fruits in the upper boughs. Maybe weather balloons caught on the branches.
Listen to what?
Says Gretchen. Shauna gazes a moment longer, squinting as if she's not sure of the answer herself. Then she turns and starts crunching down the snowy hill.
I haven't seen or heard a single bird since we got up here.
she says finally.
Well, birds migrate south for the winter,
said Gretchen, crunching after her.
Yeah, but so do the birds north of here. They migrate here.
Shauna stops and then looks at the treetops again.
It's like they went home early.
Walking back to the cabin, Gretchen realizes that Shauna isn't following her. She's heading for the forest, where the trees part slightly to indicate the path to the Carbon River Ranger Station. Gretchen calls her, annoyed.
Where are you going?
I'm gonna see if someone's at the station. Maybe they got a fan belt we can borrow.
Eat first, will ya?
Says Gretchen with a wrinkled basset hound brow.
If I go back alone, Bly's gonna make me into a new coat.
Shauna smiles her sweet smile and laughs, and then follows Gretchen back inside.